Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
How did you actually sleep last night? If it didn't feel like your very best rest, then you need to upgrade to the softest, most luxurious bedding from Boll & Branch. Their signature sheets are made from the finest 100% organic cotton and get softer with every wash. Millions of sleepers love their sheets, and right now, you can feel the difference for yourself during their biggest sales of the entire year. Hurry to bollandbranch.com to shop their best offers. Limited time only. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we talk about those films we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to talk about them. So, let's see what it's going to be this week. Hello, yes, you are listening to Just Films and That. I'm the host for this week, Josh Hallam. It is our Halloween special. I'm joined by my co-host, Jamie Allen. Jamie, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I love Halloween, so I'm ready. Yeah,
Any
spooky.
plans?
Just eat loads of sweets. Forget that I've got type 2 diabetes. All the highlights.
Turn the lights off, dance the door to the kids.
Yeah, start going into some kind of coma. Love it.
Good, excellent. Well, I'm glad. Now, we promised you a guest. We said we've got a guest for Halloween. We've got the best guest I think we've ever had. It's Alice. Alice is back. Alice, how you doing? You okay?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys?
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Wonderful to be back.
Yes, indeed. Tired?
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. There's a little human in my house now that screams at me if I don't give him what he wants.
Yeah, and your child as well. Yeah.
I'm a child as well.
So how you doing, mate? How have you been for the past few months?
You know what? I think all right, to be honest. It's easy, isn't it? Piece of piss. I don't know what everyone's moaning about, to be honest.
What's everyone about?
Oh, I'm so tired. It's like, it's so hard. It's like, no, it is hard, to be fair. It's hard in all the ways that people say it is.
Yeah.
And nothing can quite prepare you for just how hard it's going to be. But no, it's cool. He's great. He's a lovely little fella. I named him Josh Jamie, of course.
Yeah,
the
cool.
double J.
Yeah.
Josh Jamie, Just Films and That is his full.
Yeah,
his full
Triple
title.
JFT.
Yeah.
Did you put the and in, or is it just films
no,
that?
God. Ugh, crass, Josh.
Yeah.
Of course I didn't put the
Well, his
Gosh.
middle name's just a QR code that it'll take people to the podcast,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, bang on.
Yeah.
So every time I sign them up for anything, they get that QR code. There you go. Marketing. I'm always thinking,
That's
Josh
it.
and Jamie.
That's the key. If you get him confirmed or anything like that, you could maybe make his confirmation name like and subscribe and get it wherever you just get wherever you get your podcasts.
Genius. Here we go.
But yeah. So yes, Alice is back. She's back for this week's episode, and she's back again. We've got a little bonfire night special next week, and then she'll be back at some point in the future. We're not sure when, but she wanted to come back for a couple of episodes to keep her hand in. Didn't you, Alice?
Basically, yeah, just to see if I could still do it. Just to see if I could still even watch a film in its entirety. And it was hard. I'm not going to lie. It was hard. I was watching it in like 10-minute segments. It's like, okay, this is my life now.
So passionate about this week's film. Is that what it was, Alice?
They're deeply passionate about this week's film, which is listeners. Can I say it, John?
You can say it. This is your
Just
Keep in
gonna
Touch
railroad
day.
the whole thing. My Keep in Touch. It is. That is exactly what it is. This week's film is Sleepy Hollow.
It is.
For a spooky Halloween special episode.
Yes, for our spooky Halloween episode, we're talking about Sleepy Hollow from Jamie, I want to say 1999.
99, yeah, big year.
It is. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest. So, excuse me, by the way, I should say before I go on, my voice isn't in the best condition at the moment. So if you're listening to this as some sort of ASMR, you're going to be very, very disappointed. But you can rely on
Or very pleased.
Or very pleased, depending on what you like.
Which way you lean, yeah.
We've got Jamie on for his sexy voice, and Alice is Welsh. So that ticks a lot of boxes there for people in terms of voices. So this is a listener's suggestion. So We'll go on to why the listeners picked it in a minute, because we put this out to a vote. We had quite a lot of interest, quite a lot of suggestions. We boiled it down to some ones that we thought might make good for a good Halloween episode. We put those to a vote, and Sleepy Hollow was the winner. I'll go on to why it was picked in a minute. It was picked by a chap, one of our listeners called Barry Chambers. So thanks, Barry, for getting in touch. Jamie, tell the guys at home, what's Sleepy Hollow about if they've not heard of it?
In the small, sleepy town of Sleepy Hollow, several murders have taken place and heads are going missing. So big city boy constable Ichabod Crane is sent in to investigate what is going on with his newfangled methods of science, and finds out that it's actually the case of the Headless Horseman.
Indeed.
That was amazing in a Scouse accent. Murders being committed. Heads have gone missing.
Mate, he's lost his head. He's having a wobble.
He's gone. Head's gone. His head's gone. His mate's head's gone.
So as Jamie said, that's the plot. It's a Tim Burton film. So there is a surprising bit of casting in this, which is the lead, Johnny Depp. I wasn't really expecting it, but so that's Sleepy Hollow. In terms of why it's been picked then, so obviously, as I said, I put it out to the listeners. Barry Chambers chose this one. So I got in touch with him to ask him why he picked it, and this is what he said. So this is from Barry Chambers on Twitter. Hi there. Thank God parents didn't really care in the 1970s, as I grew up being allowed to watch the late night summer double horror bills on the BBC at far too younger age, which formed my love of all things from Universal Hammer, Amicus, AIP, etc. So Tim Burton was like a breath of fresh air in the late 80s and 90s, as he seemed to share the same love of these types of films. Sleepy Hollow definitely comes across as a Hammer film, if they had a decent budget to use. I think it's underrated. It's a visually stunning film, but I've seen some people feel that Burton held back too much on the horror to reflect the gothic influence of the Hammer horror films. It's taking its style from those, and I personally think that it gets the balance just about right. It wasn't underseen at the time, as I think it did pretty well at the box office, but I do feel it's been largely forgotten about since, which is a crime someone should lose their head over.
Oh, Barry.
That's a good one, Barry. What a lad. Cheers, Barry. Thank you very much.
Just got to interject there. Chambers, pretty spooky name.
Because,
being locked in a chamber. Yeah. And chamber pots, very spooky. Very spooky.
Indeed. So, thank you very much for getting in touch with us there, Barry. Had you both seen this one before? Alice, come to you. Had you seen this one before?
It was one of them, a massive list of these films where I thought I'd seen it, and I possibly may have watched it. It may have been like on in the background at some point when I was around one of my mates' houses back in the day. But no, couldn't really remember it. Had no proper recollection of it. So for me, I was taking this as watching it for the first time.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you? Bet you must have seen it before.
Yeah, I think I saw this on VHS when it first came out, but no, it wasn't a cinema trip. I don't remember being too passionate about it.
Little Jamie wasn't into Tim Burton films in 1999.
No, I loved Tim Burton. Like, the first Batman was very important to me.
Yeah, me too.
Very important to me.
And Beetlejuice, but I mean, we'll get into this in a bit. But when I first saw this, even at the age of what I would have been 14, about 13, 14 in 99, I was like, this is like someone trying to do a Tim Burton film. It's the greatest hits of Tim Burton, isn't it?
It is. It does sort of feel like that until they made Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh God!
But let's not
Had you seen
that.
it, Josh?
So I was fairly certain I'd seen it, and as I watched it, I thought I definitely seen bits of this, but I don't think I've ever sat and watched it from start to finish. So a bit like you, I've definitely seen a lot of. I think I'd seen maybe the last 45 minutes, or I'd seen half of it, but I definitely hadn't seen the start bit because I didn't know Martin Landau was in it, and I didn't see the bit where he's where he's a police constable in New York with a British accent, obviously. So no, I don't think I'd see it. I'm like similar to you. I'm counting this as the first time that I watched it. Let's get stuck into talking about it then. So just to remind people at home, the structure of the podcast is that we talk about what we liked, then we move on to what we didn't like, and then we're going to have a little look at the critical reception before deciding if it is or isn't underrated. So Barry very much is saying here, I think he's sort of saying here, and I hope you'll agree, it's underrated and maybe underseen in that it made money at the time, but is now is not being talked about. So I'm getting that he thinks it's both. Would you agree?
So yeah, somewhat with the underseen, like we've done a few films like this before, haven't we? Where we think that with modern audiences, it's one that's kind of just getting left behind, even though at the time it was fairly successful at the box office. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like so what we're saying is kids today are the problem, and it's not woke enough for them.
Well, I guess, but no one ever says like, "Oh, it's Halloween, let's bang on Sleepy Hollow." You know,
I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like no one's like people are going for the classics, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all that, but are people putting it? Because this is not, for me, it is horror-ish, but it's like one of those films that's sort of a bit horror adjacent, that's probably a little bit more watered down, that you would put on if you perhaps weren't in the mood for something really, really scary. You know, like it's not Hocus Pocus or Addams Family, but it's not Hereditary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you reckon to that, Jamie?
Well, Tim Burton makes PG-13s. That's his playground. Is like, it tends to be kind of for kids and teenagers, and it has a bit of edge. And he really goes in on a hard R rating on this, or like what we call an 18 or a 15.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't. It's not scary. It doesn't feel. There's no tension, especially when they tell you that. Around halfway, you find out that the Horseman's only coming for people that he's meant to come for. So Johnny Depp was pretty safe the whole time. And also when you think about those kind of schlocky horror films where people are like, we want to watch Friday the 13th because there's all these different ways that people die. You know, Kevin Bacon's going to get an arrow through the neck, stuff like that. This is all just decapitations. That's it. So,
same thing.
As creepy as
he's got one thing, hasn't he?
Yeah.
One trick.
Okay, let's get stuck into talking about it then. So in terms of likes then, Alice, let's come to you first. What did you like about it? What are your general feelings around it? How did you come away positive, or did you lose your head?
Oh, good one.
Same joke as Barry.
I think sort of mixed feelings. I think some elements of it were possibly better than I was expecting, or maybe not what I was expecting. But then the other things, the things that I didn't like about it were quite broad, and it didn't really leave me thinking, oh yeah, definitely going to watch this one every Halloween. So I do watch Nightmare Before Christmas pretty much every Halloween. And that's probably one of the only films that I do watch every year that isn't a Christmas film, even though it's sort of kind of a Christmas film as well. But this isn't one that I don't think I'd be rushing back to. But in terms of what I did like, I actually thought it was pretty funny. Like it was funny in like not in a big jokey sort of way, but there was a lot of comedy in how some of the characters delivered their lines, in some of their body language, in some of their like characterization and stuff. So with Johnny Depp's character, who is called Ichabod
Crane.
Ichabod.
It's a very common name. I
the
can't
one.
believe you can't get
I
it.
know. Sounds a little bit Welshy as well. I was going to say Enoch, but it ain't Enoch, is it? It's
Child number
Ichabod.
2, Ichabod.
There we go. It's on the list. So when it comes to some things, he has quite a nervous like disposition, and he's like a little bit grossed out by some things and that.
Yeah, he hates creepy crawlies, doesn't he?
He hates creepy crawlies. He's like probably the last person really that you want to be sort of investigating this mystery of people getting murdered in very gruesome ways. But that was quite funny, and I do feel like Johnny Depp played that really well, and he paid a lot of attention to things like his body language and his facial expressions and stuff like that. And a lot of the cast around him, especially the people who are living in Sleepy Hollow, and in particular, the sort of the older gentlemen who they give off this air of they seem to know exactly what's going on, but they're not really sort of thing. Like there's this sort of false arrogance and this, not being too sure of this stranger who's come in from out of town. And a lot of their body language, a lot of their facial expressions were quite entertaining and quite comical, and they actually made it quite funny, but not in this outlandish sort of laugh out loud sort of way. So it kind of matched the rest of the tone of the film and meant that it did mostly sort of get to stay as a horror, which I quite enjoyed. Great use of things like shadow and silhouette in this as well. It does feel like proper gothic, like what you would expect to see if you were told that, oh, Johnny Depp and Tim Burton have done another film together sort of thing. Like that you get that vibe completely from it. And the cast in general, I thought was pretty good. Maybe some of them not there enough. Like I saw Christopher Lee was in it and I was like, oh, awesome. Give me some Christopher Lee. And he's only in it for a little bit at the beginning.
It's more or less a cameo, isn't it? Him and Martin Landau have like little cameos towards the beginning, don't they?
Yeah, I could have done with more of him for sure. What about you, Josh? What were some things that you liked about it?
Yeah, I think to touch on what you're saying there, I did. Yeah, there are elements of. I mean, everything that is good about a Tim Burton film if you like it, is in this. That's probably the strongest thing I can say about it. I did enjoy it. I think it's a fairly solid, well-made film. It didn't particularly blow me away. I wouldn't be in like a rush to watch it again, but I came away having been entertained. So, like you said, I really did like those elements of stylized scripting. So there's this sort of mix of the old and the new. So they all deliver this clipped way of speaking, but at the same time, it seems to know it's doing it. It's almost a little bit pantomime, and I think that's probably a nod to things like Hammer horror, in that you're presenting these sort of same old concepts, but as a more of a melodrama. So it's sort. I think there are elements where it's got its tongue firmly in its cheek, and it knows. It sort of knows how daft it is, but doesn't do it to such a degree that's like you think you aren't taking this seriously enough. It really does toe the balance, I think, quite well. Like, one thing I do like about Tim Burton films, I think whether you like him or not, and he's not for everyone, I do like him. They do have strong concepts a lot of the time, and they do just sort of present themselves to you without apology. They just go, "This is what it is, take it or leave it." And I think I quite liked that. So the other thing that they do in this as well is that there's actually no real tension building. There's no like, it's not Scooby-Doo. So it's not going to turn out that he's not a headless horseman. Like, at one point they just go, no, this is all happening. This is it. This is what it is, sort of thing. So there's no mystery. So then you get to focus on the things you do like, which is, like you say, the execution of how it looks, which is great use of light and color, costume and makeup. And like, he does do a good job of building a rich world. And he's one of the only directors I know that you can sort of see exactly how he's made it and see that it's almost you can almost see it's a self-contained set in the same way that Gotham is in Batman 89, but you don't mind. Do you know what I mean? You can sort of see, like, he's created this little pocket of a world for you. That's where you are for the next 2 hours. Just enjoy it. Just see what happens. And I think I did quite enjoy it in that sense. What about you, Jamie? I get the impression of the three of us, you're going to be the least keen.
No, I mean, I don't think it's a
darkness,
bad...
You only like colour and light.
Well, no, I would say the way bits that I like, I mean, I think it looks amazing. And now and again, you get a director where you can tell they went, can I make this in black and white? And the studio goes, absolutely not. And they've gone, all right, well, I'm going to low-key make it in black and white, but you're not going to be able to tell. Because it is pretty much a black and white film, isn't it?
More or less. And the only reason that really pops as well is when he does use colour, it absolutely jumps off the screen.
Yeah, and I think he gets the aesthetics bang on. If you love the Hammer horror films, and there's a bit of like the old Universal stuff in it as well. Like when you see the old windmill, that feels like it's taken directly from the 30s Frankenstein, which like I think visually, obviously it's never bad with Ben, even when he starts to learn how to use CGI later on. And piggybacking on the tone of it is fun. It is light. I actually laughed out loud at the bit with Michael Gambon when he starts talking to him after Johnny Depp confirms it's the Headless Horseman, and he's going, "Yeah, we know, we told you." Yeah. And he's like, "No, but there's a Headless Horseman." And he's like, "Yes, that's what everyone's been saying." And then he keeps it light, like no one's other horror. If this was made today, that whole village would not be wanting to go outside. No one would be going into the woods. It would be like we're building dread. Whereas it feels like the Headless Horseman is like a highwayman, where they're like, oh god, and there's the bloody Headless Horseman out there as well, but we'll carry on partying. So I like that it knows exactly what tone it goes for. And I think the stunt work is great as well. When you look at that was Ray Park, I think he played Darth Maul, yeah,
or Toad from the first X-Men.
He does it, considering he can't see. He does some great work. I think the fights that they have, there's a freeway fight with Casper Van Dien and Johnny Depp, and obviously the chase stunt as well, where you can see that it's Johnny Depp riding on the back of those horses.
Dragged along.
Yeah, and that when you think like Tim Burton has been criticized before for not being able to do action well, like the action in Batman is pretty rote. It feels like he's gone, all right, well, I'm going to show you that I can do this as well. So I liked all that, some good stuff there, but I am ready to now shit on this movie.
Okay, well, let's move on to that then. If you're ready, Jamie, I'm gonna let you go. Pull the cord, let you go. Go on. If you're a fan of Sleepy Hollow and you then turn away now, because I think Jamie's gonna shit on it.
No, to be fair, it's okay, but God, I do not give a shit about the murder conspiracy in this film. Did you?
Yeah, especially because it's targeted to certain people. You're like, well, then off we go then.
Yeah, you get like kind of there's a bit where someone goes, "There's not 4 people buried there. There's 5 people," as if it's meant to be a mystery. And like, okay, so she was pregnant. Just say she was pregnant. There you go. You know who the dad is. Tell me that as well. Help me with the investigation. And I can't. I watched this afternoon. I can't remember the names. I know there's some like American Dutch names. I can't remember the conspiracy at all. I know Miranda Richardson is behind it all for money and revenge.
It's something to do with a revenge on a landlord.
Yeah,
landlord kicks her and her family out, and she's a little twin, and she sees spiky hair Christopher Walken. And
yeah, someone with one of the most iconic voices of the last 50 years. What do you want to do with him to make him silent the whole film?
Okay. Just have him grunt, Christopher.
And that, like, yeah, it's the, I know I'm sorry, Barry, I'm sorry, but also when you think Tim Burton films, you think of like iconic scenes, like you've got the Deo scene in Beetlejuice, or Edward Scissorhands, you've got the cutting the ice angel so that it looks like it's snowing on Winona Ryder. Because he's chosen to make the colour palette exactly the same in every scene, I don't think there's an iconic scene in this. There's nothing where when you get to it, you go, oh, yes, I love this scene. It all kind of feels very samey. Like, if you asked me to put this film in order now, I don't think I'd be able to. I'd be like, there's the bit where he's in the woods with Christina Ricci. He goes to see someone. I can't,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do think it's quite consistent visually, but in terms of beats and the journey of the film, like if you were to draw a graph of, say, other bigger films, it's like, oh, there's a big beat at the beginning, and then there's a bit of exposition, another big beat, big ending, all builds up to this. Whereas this is just, it's like a flat line, isn't it? It's just one fine long line.
And also, just to put the final nail in, God, they fall in love a bit keen, don't they? That's
Ichabod Crane and whatever Christina Ricci's character is called.
I think they see each other twice, and then they're kind of declaring, "Oh no, isn't it tragic because I'm in love with you and you don't trust me because I'm a witch?" It's you met once.
That's my main issue with this. So I didn't mind some of the stuff you're saying. I know what you mean about the action beats. That's not something I really thought about. But her character, nothing wrong with her performance. I think she herself is not, I think, has gone on record and say she's not particularly happy with her character in this film, because I think she sort of lacks definition. She's there to serve whatever purpose the female lead needs to serve. But I think the characterization of her isn't very strong. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think there was any real chemistry between them in that sense. And I'd probably say, not to be a bit too conservative about it, but she's probably a bit young to be in the romantic side of things as well. Like he must be like mid-30s and she's 19 in this, and loves love and all that, guys. But I think there's a reason why they don't have that chemistry. So I thought her character and her character's representation, absolutely nothing wrong with the performance, but that was the weak link for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to wonder, where was Winona Ryder,
where was Helena Bonham Carter?
Yeah, Tim Burton's making a film. And this is following up from, Christina Ricci was our Wednesday, if we're that generation. And he was a really exciting character across 2 films. And then she just gets given, at one point, she's Basil Expedition, where
that's exactly right. She just serves whatever purpose the film needs it to serve. Like at one point, it's like maybe she's involved, and then it just goes, nah, she's not.
Yeah,
you're like, all right.
She actually laid out the plot near the start, where she's like, well, my father did this, and then I did this, and I moved over here, and that person's that. So I remember their name as well. And I guess she wanted some money, maybe.
Yeah, she's like a cross between a Bond girl and Q. Like, like when Q's like, now then 007, you're going to need this specific thing. Remember that at home, because it's coming back later on when he needs to escape from somewhere. I don't think it's particularly offensively bad or anything like that, but I think they're definitely flawed based on what me and Jamie have said. What about you, Alice? What do you not like about it?
Well, there wasn't anything very specific. My points were quite broad, but I think they're certainly informed by what you've both said in terms of how the kind of the action goes along and how the story develops and all that. And it was just that for what it is, it does feel a little bit long. And there's a lot of, it just feels like there's a lot of space in this film. There's a lot of space where not really that much is happening. And I didn't find it particularly exciting either. Like, I wasn't on the edge of my seat thinking, oh God, what's going to happen next? Like, what is going on? What is the mystery and all this? Like, a lot of that was missing. Whereas I wonder if instead they were favouring, you know, like the way it looks and some of the costume and the props and the set and all that sort of thing. Is that all kind of the dominant feature of this film? And so in terms of the story being exciting and in terms of the script and things like that being the thing that hooks you in, that just isn't the case in this. And I think that probably adds to my feeling of kind of going away and thinking like, probably don't need to watch that again. Like, really, I feel like I've got everything out of it that I could have got. So I if I was going to change something, there would just need to be something else in there for the story to make it more exciting, maybe to scare the audience legitimately a little bit. I mean, Christopher Walken does look pretty creepy, but apart from that, there isn't really anything. And so I guess I just wasn't super engaged with it, and I would have liked to have been. But I do think you could have knocked maybe 15 or 20 minutes on there, maybe condense it a little bit more. Maybe that would have strengthened it. Not sure.
I think if they made this now, I think narratively it would look different. I think it would probably have some sort of like heavier elements of narration bookending it and things like that. Or if they made it now, it'd be 2.5 hours, and the first hour would be how he ended up headless. And then that would lead into a Netflix series of 10 episodes about him getting his head back. There is a series though, isn't there? There's a series of...
I think there's a modern day one.
Is it modern day, is it? Oh, I thought it was because it is based on a book, isn't it? So I thought it was an adaptation of the book, but no, it is. Yeah, like you say, it is. I do wonder if it aged in terms of, you know, sometimes you look at a film and you can see it was made at a certain time. I do wonder if at the time coming to the end of the 90s, there was a lot of really strong conceptual things like Fight Club and The Matrix and things like that, but then also things like this, where it was just all visual. You know, that sort of thing. And I do wonder if that, like you say, so one of the things I noticed is like a sort of a combination of what you both said there, which is I didn't give a shit that the horseless headman, the headless horseman was killing people. Because
just a guy. Just
one head with no horse, can't do anything. But, you know, like I didn't care because I think almost like you need to know more about the families that he's targeting. Whereas you just go in it being like, all right, okay, well, if they've wronged him, then, you know.
You don't get any sort of depth of character really at all. So then you don't, like you say, you don't really care and you don't feel connected to those characters. So then it's kind of like, so then it's a bit like, well, what is this then in terms of genre? Is it meant to be a drama? Is it meant to be a horror? Is it meant to be this? Is it meant to be that? And you just sort of left a bit like just not really feeling much.
I think they've tried to cheat by overcrowding those main kind of village elders with recognizable that guys. You know, you've got you got the butler from Batman, you've got the dad from Beetlejuice. You know, it's instead of building those characters and developing them, it's just going, well, you'll remember who they are because they've been in my films before.
Yeah, that's
instead
Alfred.
of developing.
Alfred? Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to talking about the critical reception and the box office. Then, just to remind you how it works, we take the IMDb and the 2 Rotten Tomatoes scores and we smush them together in the average. So, again, Barry picked this because he thinks it's underrated and underseen, with the caveat that the underseen is that it did make money, but it's sort of been lost, you know, in time a little bit. I mean, how do you guys? I'll come to you first, Alice. How do you think it did, and how would you sort of rate it? You know, roughly speaking. Yep. Okay, Jamie.
I wonder if people who like this sort of thing did really like it. Like, you know, they like the mise en scène and everything that goes with it, and the vibe and the atmosphere and all that sort of thing. So I wonder if they're sort of dragging up the average score. What did it get overall? I'm going to say that on average, altogether, it got a 72 or a 7.2. I probably wouldn't give it that, and I would give it less just because it just didn't have me hooked. Like, there were definitely good things about it, but it didn't have me hooked. I'm probably giving it maybe like a 63 or a 6.3, I reckon.
Jamie, how about you? You largely agreeing? You going lower, higher?
So, I mean, for me, me personally, I'd give it like a 5.5, just because I do have those issues of, it's the most like, I'll just have this on in the background Tim Burton film. But a caveat to that, I think it's great that people do enjoy this. I don't want to say you're in the wrong. If you can get something from this film, that's great. If you love all the Tim Burton films, that's great. But like, I think we've all just found issues with this is just a bit blur,
Yeah, and like we've said before, we're all about balance here. We've done the good, we've done the bad, and we all are roughly on the same page. I'm probably more aligned with Alice. Like, I think it was fine, flawed stuff to like in there, but it's certainly not like it's not want to be in a rush to watch again. But like you say, this is it's over Halloween. It's on ITV2, and you need something on in the background whilst you do the ironing or whatever. It's that, isn't it?
Do the ironing? You ironing, Josh? Who's ironing this day and age? What?
Well, I've got to do me socks, boxers, doilies. It's got to be very well presented. I've bought myself a Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow coat. Goes right down to the floor, so that when I get dragged along, I'm going to get Jamie to drag me along on my car.
Fabulous, very fetching, very Halloweeny of you.
That's how we're doing trick or treating, drive-by trick or treating.
Don't mind the dead body tied to the car. Anyway, so the scores then. So at the time of recording, over on IMDb, it gets 7.3.
What? Oh my God! Did you all forget? How amazing it was? I'm so good at these guesses, man. Jesus Christ!
The audience on Rotten Tomatoes give it. This is high, 80%.
Oh, wow. Come on, audience!
The critics give it a 70%. So that averages out at 74%, or 7.4 out of 10. So more or less what Alice said. But based on what we said there, I mean, we're probably saying overrated, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, sorry, Barry. Oh. Listen, we like some stuff about it, but it probably is overrated. But let's move on to the second point then. So, at the time, according to Box Office Mojo, it made 207 million quid, which for 1999 is probably pretty good. I bet it's made its money back and then some. Because this is before everything went absolutely crazy in terms of how much stuff cost and money for films and things like that. So I would say, for me, it probably isn't. I remember it being a big deal at the time. It's parodied on things like The Simpsons and that sort of thing. But I do agree with Barry that people aren't going back to this. And it might be for a good reason, but that's not the point. I do think people probably are not. If you're watching it, it's probably because you've already seen it. I don't think people are scrolling through the various streaming services being like, "Oh, this looks good," because I think it looks fairly generic. So I'm going to say overrated, underseen. What about you, Alice?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think we've shown as this kind of being our first viewing, but having some knowledge, it didn't grab us. I reckon if you are watching this, if you're the target audience when it was released, it probably is going to be a lot more exciting. But I can't see 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds or whatever watching this now and getting a lot from it. I don't think it would align with what modern audiences are looking for, is my opinion. So I reckon in that regard, you could say that it is underseen at this point. But that's good. It did well at the box office, but then, didn't it? That felt like quite a lot of money for the time.
Yeah, it is. And I think it was quite a big deal. Generally, I do remember this having some impact in terms of pop culture at the time. Because like I say, it was parodied on things like The Simpsons, but I just think it came and went. Whereas something from the same year, if you look at The Matrix, that's obviously had a lasting. I know it's a completely different film, but in terms of how things age, it's the Matrix is just like a fine wine. Just the more you watch it, the more perspective you get on it, sort of thing. What about you, Jamie? Underseen, overrated?
I mean, definitely overrated.
Underseen, underseen, overrated.
Overrated, yeah. And underseen because it is forgotten now. And as I said, it's not a bad film, but it's definitely the bottom half of Burton's films. But just to appease Barry, I'll say underseen. I do like you, Barry.
It's at Jay Allerton on Twitter. His DMs are open. But no, Barry, thank you very much for getting in touch with us. Thanks to everyone who voted, and we'll obviously be back with a Halloween special next year. But there we go, Sleepy Hollow Halloween special for this year. Underseen in terms of its aging, but unfortunately a little bit overrated. But you know what? Give it a watch, drop us a line, and tell us what you thought of Sleepy Hollow and why Jamie is completely and utterly wrong. Listen, we're going to be back next week. Next week, our episode will, of course, be released on the 5th of November. So we're doing a very appropriate film for the time. Can't possibly say what it is, though, guys, can we? Do you know what I mean?
You'll never guess.
Short Circuit 2 is coming, baby.
We've got Short Circuit 2. But we'll leave that as a mystery. You'll never guess what it is. if I say the date, the 5th of November. Alice will be back for that one. Me and Jamie will be back for that one. So we'll see you next week. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social media. So if you just search for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, you can find us. We're always putting stuff out there. So do give us a follow. And all that remains to be said is it's goodbye from me. Cheerio.
Bye.
Hear that? It could be the sound of your phone dinging every time you sell a product with TikTok ads this holiday season. If you've ever thought about advertising your business on TikTok, now is the time to do it. You can drive more customers to your website, sell products right in the app, and you can even use TikTok's creative tools to easily make content and find creators to help sell your products for you. But you have to start now. So head over to getstarted.tiktok.com/holiday24 and drive more holiday sales today.